Warning: the following video contains content that some viewers on board might find disturbing. Please note this is a fictional spaceship. Watch at your own peril. You know, I think horror is probably one of the most difficult to define genres among human artwork. Horror seems to have a different meaning to every person that you talk to, and what constitutes a work of horror fiction is pretty divisive. Some people define horror as a state of fear, a sense of helplessness against a perceived threat. Others argue that it is actions of extreme violence or of a grotesque nature. Sometimes it is simply the idea of unease and dread that creates the perfect horror atmosphere. I personally define horror as the ability to activate the fight or flight response. That primal itch in the back of your mind that tells you to either put your dukes up or to run screaming. To me, it's not necessary to terrify me to the core of my being to really be considered a horror creation. At the same time, I also don't think horror necessitates a feeling of helplessness. Dead Space is one of my all-time favorite video game franchises. It contains all of the things that fascinate me. Atmosphere dripping with music and dread, lots of wonderful violence and terror, a fascinating fictional universe, and visuals that were stunning at the time of their creation. All of this comes together into a neat package, forming one of the all-time greatest horror games. But I would argue, for me personally, that Dead Space is not inherently scary. Yes, there are moments of genuine dread, sections in which I find myself panicking and running more than fighting. But the game drops you into a science fiction-fueled nightmare, forcing you to utilize mining equipment to fend off preternaturally revived and mutated corpses. This means that every fight with the so-called necromorphs activates that primal urge of fight or flight inside all of us. To me, this is quintessential horror.
Strange. Such a little thing.
The game begins rather suddenly, with the introduction of the player character of Isaac Clarke. This character is named after famed authors Isaac Asimov and Arthur C. Clarke, and Isaac is a silent protagonist, at least in the first Dead Space. Within the first few seconds of the game, our overall goal is established through a holographic video of Isaac's girlfriend, Nicole. She is the chief medical officer on board the USG Ishimura, a fictional mining vessel belonging to the spacefaring humans. She was on board the Ishimura when it sent a distress call from a restricted part of space. The Ishimura is a type of planet cracker, and its design is unique among most popular science fiction of the day. It's meant to tear open planets and harvest their mineral cores. Seeing that strange, almost ribcage-like design begin to emerge past the asteroids always fills me with a sense of wonder. You are immediately left with the idea that this ship is designed to do one thing, and it does that one thing very well. It is a brutal piece of engineering, harsh metal edges, and no sense of comfort or art went into its design. Isaac is not the normal protagonist of this time period either. Like the ship, he isn't a super soldier or some kind of immortal demon slayer. Instead, he's an engineer. Explicitly in the lore, Isaac is designed to be something of a blue-collar worker, a human term for a person who works mainly with their hands. He isn't the type of engineer that draws up schematics. Instead, he crawls into the soot-covered engines to fix them by hand. He is an everyman. Joining him is Kendra Daniels, a computer technician, and security officer Zach Hammond. Oh, and, these two, who, spoiler alert, do not make it more than a few hundred feet. Our goal is to locate Nicole on board the Ishimura, which appears to have been performing an illegal mining operation in restricted space. Oh, and since Isaac is an engineer, he's also supposed to fix the ship. But we all know he's really here to find Nicole. I want to take a moment to talk about the visual design of Dead Space before we go forwards, mainly the utility of its technology. Video calls are performed via holographic projectors in the color of the engineering suit that Isaac is wearing. This technology is actually really interesting, as it is fully integrated into the design of the game itself. Not only do the characters deliver story and objectives to Isaac using these holograms, but holograms are used for basically everything. Computer displays, aiming weapons, door buttons. Hell, even the in-game inventory management is an actual holographic display in front of Isaac. It doesn't even pause the game when it's up, fully immersing you into the idea of these holograms being widely used. The other technology is their mastery of gravity, known as kinesis, and time, aka stasis. Kinesis is used extensively as a tool to pick up and move objects far in excess of what a human being could lift. Just like in other games of this era, it was of course just playing with simulated physics. Yes, I know, Half-Life did it better. There's also stasis, which is a heavily utilized resource of slowing down objects to solve puzzles, or enemies to make them easier to shoot. And then there's the one that everyone vibes with the most, Isaac's rig. The game has no HUD, but only in the sense that all the ammo and health are displayed through in-universe concepts. Nothing clutters the sides of your vision. Instead, Isaac's health bar is presented as this interesting spinal display. Green means good, yellow means, yeah, not so good, and red means you really should go get some health. Obviously, empty means you're a pile of arms and legs at this point. Dead Space was not the first ones to utilize this design philosophy, but I think they were the first ones to really nail the aesthetics of the HUD-less game. Finally, there's the design of the ship itself. It's claustrophobic, the corridors are tight and poorly lit. Everything is harsh, cold metal, not a single carpet in sight. There are vents for circulating air all over the ship, which can only become dangerous vectors of necromorph travel. The displays flicker, adding to the feeling of overwork. The engineering sections of the ship are packed with an almost comical lack of safety. Doors can and do just close on arms. Asteroids that are being mined can crush and maim the crew. There's an entire medical bay dedicated to cloning members of the ship, purely to harvest internal organs or limbs that are damaged or torn off in service to the Ishimura. And that's before the necromorphs show up. The Ishimura was not supposed to be in the Aegis system. That much is made clear as soon as the ship appears on screen. Something obviously has gone wrong. I mean, why wouldn't it go wrong? Spooky looking ship, desolate planet. They were asking to be invaded by eldritch nightmares. As soon as we land, it's pretty obvious things are not right. No one's there to greet us, and no one's answering on the radios. Oh, that's a person with blades for arms. Oh, good, they're coming right after me. I have no way to fight. Close, close, close. Oh, thank God. Excuse you. Oh, I can see why they need cloning bays to replace arms. The game takes this time to introduce us to the enemies of Dead Space, the necromorphs. Unlike normal zombies, necromorphs don't give a crap if you shoot their heads off. Instead, the game very aggressively suggests to the player through multiple sources that the only option for eliminating a necromorph is through limb removal. You gotta cut off their limbs. And to facilitate that, we're gonna have to pick up the first weapon of the run, the absolute mascot weapon of this game, the plasma cutter. Aiming seems a little off. Nah, it's fine. Normally I play this on an old 360 I dredged up, but I found a copy of the PC version. Still playing with a controller because you can't tell me what to do. The necromorphs are made out of deceased humans, literally dead bodies. There's some kind of terrifying alien artifact on the ship that is beginning to resurrect the crew one by one. This marker emits a signal that penetrates flesh, bone, and metal. It reanimates the dead and drives the living insane with hallucinations. You can actively see the descent of the crew all over the ship, as they scrawl desperate pleas on the walls. Over time, these pleas twisted into insane ramblings, and eventually became alien in language. The marker is literally filling their head with its madness, driving the crew to kill themselves and join the horde of necromorphs. As the signal regenerates the necrotic flesh, a new necromorph mutates to become an efficient killing machine. Arm bones burst through hands to become elongated blades, intestines become scorpion whiptails, and even the most heavily damaged become living bombs. I want to repeat that this would not happen on a spaceship, so nobody panic. The most commonly encountered necromorphs are these upright fellows. Twin blades, a penchant for munching on necks, and coming in different flavors depending on the deck you're on. The scorpion type is my absolute least favorite, not because of their visual design, but because they drive me absolutely insane with the difficulty in actually hitting their stupid arms. That, and they tend to leap across the entire map. Don't you do that, bad thingy. Get off of me. The babies are not actually infants, mind you, but instead are clones produced in the medical bay that I mentioned earlier. They're oversized since they're meant to be harvested for internal organs and limbs. But now they become these mobile turrets of sorts, sending 3 prongs of bone blades whipping towards you. Not really an issue by themselves, but when there's 5 of them, or 1 in a group of normal necromorphs, it becomes a bit of a problem. Stop stabbing me! Or kick you! Well, that was fun. The little finger bone thingies are next. Not much to talk about these guys. If they jump on you, it's goodnight Irene. Just clean them up with an economy weapon and you're good to go. Pregnants are these bloated necromorphs that are filled with either the babies or the finger bone thingies. Super annoying, because if you hit them in the torso, they rip themselves open to unleash their unholy spawn. Otherwise, they're exactly the same as the other morphs. Oh no, don't do... Oh, come on! These horrible little flappy wing guys are infectors, which obviously spread the necromorph infection directly into corpses, jump-starting the marker's transformation. It's not really clear in this game whether you have to be infected with the bacteria that causes the infection to start it off, or you'd naturally reanimate under the signal with time. Given that these flappy boys create necrotic super versions of necromorphs with their infections, I'm gonna go ahead and say that time was the normal one. No, thank you. I like being normal. Don't you do that! Stupid thing. These wonderfully slender guys are a direct callback to The Thing. Shooting them causes them to fall to literal pieces, becoming hands, feet, and a head that really wants to get you. Super annoying, these bits and pieces. Somehow tanky while also being tiny and fast moving. God, why can I not hit anything? Oh, crap. Bad head. Oh, punishment time. Frickin' thing. Oh yes, the Guardians. As the necromorph infection spreads, it does what all good sci-fi horror zombies do. Spread a creepy, fleshy tumor across any and all surfaces. Now I don't know if they were stuck there by a necromorph, or if these unfortunate polyps just fell directly into the goo while alive, but they are now part of the wall. First stage is creepy, but mostly harmless. They react to light, attack you with some flappy hanging tentacles if you get too close, and make a lot of whining noises. It's the big ones that are the issue. 6 tentacles emerge from their center to create the limbs you gotta cut off. At the same time, it fires out an endless swarm of weak but irritating little pods with faces that fire projectiles at you. It's also got an insta-kill move if you get close, so trying to bypass it might make you lose your head. Now shut up, it was good. They also make a disturbingly satisfied noise when they die, as if released from the horrors they are experiencing. Dead Space. There's one more normal necromorph, but I'll talk about that enemy when we get to it. It's a bit relevant to the story. As for mini-bosses, there's a big gorilla-like bruiser who's clearly an amalgamation of corpses. Thankfully he has some visually distinct glowing pieces to shoot, so you know where to fire. First time you fight this guy will be pretty intimidating, but once you understand his pattern and use stasis to slow down his charge, he's pretty much a cakewalk. Come on. Gotcha. You drop this. Other than that, there's mostly just weird things. A couple of bosses, some guys who like to breathe a lot, tons of tentacles. Hey. You let go of me. No. No. I am not coming to visit you for dinner. That's what I thought. Now I want you to bear in mind, I'm playing this on Impossible. It's the optional difficulty that is added to the game once you beat it on Hard, and the developers normally intend for you to play it in New Game Plus. I actually went into the files of the game, since I've never played the PC version, and modified the files to allow me to play it on the first run. I wouldn't say the game is too terribly difficult, especially since I know what is coming up and how to prepare for it, but by the end of the game I had so much spare ammo and health that I actually couldn't take it all into the final boss. I was over-prepared. I just wanted to make that clear when you see shots of me unloading endlessly into limbs before they finally break. The enemies aren't normally that tough. It's just that I really like this game a lot. Anyway, Impossible mode isn't that much different from the other difficulties. Enemies just get a lot tougher, deal much more damage, and drop way less ammo. But you can beat the game on this difficulty without too much trouble, so long as you know what you're doing. The weapons of Dead Space are pretty unique among games of this genre. Rather than being standard guns, for the most part, they are apparently mining equipment. Yes, everything from superheated plasma cutters to buzzsaws being suspended by a kinesis field are available in this game. Once again, the fact that you can utilize a weapon designed to drill into the core of a world really helps hammer home the need for that cloning operation. I bet necromorphs aren't the first time someone's got an arm shot off by a string of plasma. You can only hold and use 4 of the 7 weapons in this game, unless you were to somehow buy and store them, but I don't know why you would. The game is coded to only drop ammo of the weapons you have currently purchased, with a few rare exceptions. Sometimes the game is hard-coded to drop a specific type of ammo at a specific location, but there's no way to change that. At least as far as I'm aware. The first 3 I'll briefly mention had no bearing on my playthrough. I didn't purchase them because they're either kind of wonky in a fight, or flat out useless. The Ripper is cool as hell, firing out a suspended automatic saw that you can use to grind through enemies. And if you're feeling threatened, just shoot it out at high speed. The saw tends to wind up behind enemies though, and struggles with rapidly switching targets, so I avoid this most playthroughs on impossible. The force gun is the shotgun of the game, and it's really disappointing. It knocks enemies to the ground, but since the only way to keep them down is to cut off the limbs, or do stupid amounts of damage, this is one game with a disappointing shotgun. The primary sends out a wide shockwave, while the secondary sends out a focused one. Later Dead Spaces would improve upon the force gun concept, but here it's just pitiful. No thank you. The flamer? Trash. Doesn't stun enemies enough, the flames don't hurt fast enough, and it doesn't work in a vacuum. Hilariously, flamethrowers do work in a vacuum. They produce their own propellant to burn even in a void, which means the developers erroneously designed this weapon to not work in space, despite the fact that it certainly does. Secondary is a fire trap? Who cares? Get that crap out of my face. The plasma cutter is the first weapon of the game, and it's completely free. With the stylish method of swapping between horizontal and vertical to deliver that line of plasma a little more accurately into limbs, it lives and breathes the mantra of this game. It's pretty basic, requiring you to upgrade it and babysit it a little, but you can beat the whole game with just this weapon. In fact, there's an achievement for it. I highly recommend using this. The second weapon, and the one I always get as the economy weapon, is the pulse rifle. It is actually the only true weapon in the game, designed by the military to be used in mid-range combat like a normal rifle. Unfortunately, the weapon suffers since in the real world you can take shots at center mass, but out here in Nightmare Town, limbs are the way to go. So spraying ammo directly into the arms and legs can be a chore. But in all honesty, this gun is amazing. You can whip it side to side to fend off necromorphs that are right up on you, stun lock a single one for extended durations, and use it to clean up the annoying little ones not losing too much ammo. Oh, and the secondary fire is this insanely stupid spinning attack that takes too long to wind up and is pointless. But still, economy is economy, and when upgraded it can take down even the biggest of baddies. The line gun is what you get if you take the plasma cutter and just make it bigger. While not the most groundbreaking of guns, its ability to take off legs and deal with the babies makes it a pretty safe bet to get. The secondary makes a sort of timed explosive that, I swear, it only works half of the time. Either way, it's something to clean up those pesky enemies with lots of limbs, saving your more useful cutter and rifle for the more durable enemies. Lastly is a bit of a toss-up. I only use it this playthrough because its ability to wipe the floor with bosses is entertaining, but it often becomes a liability. It's the contact beam. Imagine taking the force of a train wreck and squishing it into a ball the size of your fist. That's the contact beam. The problem is that the charge is way too long, so you can't use it to get yourself onto the tight spots you feel it should be used for. On top of that, on Impossible it isn't the spicy one-hit kill you want it to be, and they only drop one ammo in each pickup. This can actually mess up the ammo drops and cause you to lose out on normal ammo, so beware if you get this gun. Secondary is interesting, shove the gun into the ground and fire. I actually found it useful in getting rid of those finky bone thingies. The shop is where you collect all the guns but the cutter. A holographic display shows you all the options for purchasing, which expands as you pick up schematics scattered around the ship. There's also a safe, allowing you to easily transport items and ammo between your inventory and the safe. This is extremely useful for saving ammo for the harder parts of the game, a practice I encourage in higher difficulties to make sure you don't totally run out. The main thing the shop sells are guns, rig upgrades, ammo, and power nodes. Upgrading your rig is crucial for survival in this game, as it not only improves your damage resistance each time, but it also expands your inventory slots. The armor itself visually changes each time, gaining more armor plating across his body, while also increasing the lights on the face to visually indicate what level it is. Money is represented by credits, dropped by enemies inside of storage containers throughout the game. Which, if you think about it, it's a little messed up that you have to buy the emergency weapons you need to survive here, isn't it? Ah well, video games. That said, you don't ever want to spend money on anything but new guns and suit upgrades, and the semi-finite power nodes. You will get more than enough ammo throughout the game to support you, and I ended the game with so much ammo I couldn't even take it all out of my save, so focus on the power nodes. Now I say semi-finite because while you can purchase as many of them as you like, credits are obviously limited throughout the game. But purchasing or finding these power nodes allows you to use them at upgrade benches scattered throughout the game. Every gun has an upgrade tree, as well as your kinesis, rig, and stasis. Right off the bat, kinesis is useless in this game. You can't hit enemies hard enough to damage them meaningfully in combat. This is addressed in the second game, making kinesis there ungodly amounts of broken. Stasis is useful depending on your playstyle. I tend to ignore it most of the time since there's no fast way to recharge your stasis mid-fight. I certainly use it from time to time, but increasing its duration and energy never seemed that important to me in this game. The rig upgrades are health and air, and I will tell you for a fact that you do not ever need to waste nodes on air. My second ever playthrough, I decided to try and go as far as I could without upgrading air, only to discover that the entire game is easily beatable, with some minor stress, without ever upgrading it. You will have to put up with Isaac suffocating every time you get down to 30 seconds, making this horrible choking noise. God, that just sounds hideous, doesn't it? Health, on the other hand, is expensive, costing on average 2 nodes for one upgrade. But there are 2 major benefits for doing so. 1, you don't die instantly when smacked by a necromorph, so that's a plus. And 2, if you are at low health and then upgrade your health stat, it fully recharges your health bar to the new maximum. A good strategy for avoiding using too many health kits. Oh, and speaking of health kits, they come in small, medium, and large boy versions. The game prioritizes the small health kits over the big ones when healing, so be aware of this in case you heal too little to stop the next blow from killing you. The weapon upgrades are all pretty standard stuff. Increased ammo capacity, damage, reload speed, and a few odds and ends. Stuff like mind damage, width of the beam, that kind of stuff. The same concept with health applies for the ammo capacity, by the way, so empty out your gun, avoid reloading, and then pop a node onto the ammo capacity spot to gain several free pickups worth of ammo. I mostly focus on ammo and damage. Reload speed rarely matters to me in this game. One last thing about the nodes. There is typically one door in each level that is locked, only openable by slotting a node inside. These are all worth spending a node on, as you can find a heap of ammo and money inside that offsets the cost of the node itself. There's also schematics inside some of them, further proving their worth. And there is enough money you will probably get most of the upgrades you want by the end of the game. With that, we've gone over most of the mechanics of the game, from weapons to healing, leaving only Now that we've established who Isaac is, how the guns and the tools on the ship work, let's discuss the overall story of the game. For this I'm going to put up a spoiler. For those of you on board that are still interested in playing the game without my input, turn away now. Dead Space is, in my opinion, a solid story that experiments and twists just enough to keep it fresh, without getting too off the wall. Of course, that's from the standpoint of Eldritch Artifact reviving the dead not being too weird, but you get my meaning. It clearly establishes the rules of this universe within the first level of the game, teaching you all the mechanics, how enemies move through the level, what to do to kill them, and it helps establish all the overall characters. With the motivation of salvaging the Ishimura, discovering what caused this horrific event, and trying to locate Nicole, the game helps set up clear objectives. After the necromorph attack, you find yourself exploring the level to re-establish the tram system. At the same time, you're separated from Kendra and Hammond, who are forced to fend for themselves off-screen. This means that, for the entire game, Clark, or that is you, are forced to brave the sanity-crumbling halls on your own. Our only companion throughout this entire adventure is the hostile abominations to life itself, the necromorphs. Fixing the tram system completes the mission, and takes us on a journey to discover just what the hell happened here. We only become more desperate to find an escape when the shuttle we arrived on explodes due to the damage from crashing. Throughout, we are given logs from characters both vocal and text, which describe events prior to and during the outbreak of the necromorphs. These range from fairly mundane in nature to panicked desperation as they try to survive these events.
This is Benson, Tram Engineering. We think we figured it out. Smith killed one. Listen, forget about shooting him in the body. You gotta cut off the limbs. Grab a cutter, anything like that. Cut him apart.
Clark is given the inevitable task of repairing just about every system on the ship that normally requires a crew of hundreds. I personally think this makes Clark more desperate to find Nicole, especially as the second level takes us directly where she should be working, the medical bay. It's here the game takes off the training gloves and starts to really throw enemies at us in unique formations, often having level designs that force you to consider every vent a vector from necromorphs. The walls are scrawled with the desperate scribbles from panicked crew members, whose minds are succumbing to the signal of the marker. These are not just your normal run-of-the-mill scribbles, there is a built-in explanation. The marker fills the minds of the unfortunate with its signal, filling them up with calculations and alien languages. The only relief seems to be almost to take the pressure off by scrawling out the language and calculations on the wall. This starts first as pleas for help or declarations of insanity, then becoming scrawled text, often in blood, in an alien cipher. Fun fact, the developers did cheap out a little. The language is just one-to-one with English letters. You alright, lady?
Nothing to be afraid of. I knew you would come. Just like you said. I saved this for you.
Oh.
Can I go now? Claire wants to take me. Just shut up.
Well, thanks for the kinesis, I suppose. She's got a little bit of that mid-2000s havoc ragdoll jank going on. The medical bay provides us with the objective of locating the captain of the Ishimura, Matthias. The entire ship is locked out due to the infection, and only his rig can provide the codes to lift the lockdowns and gain access to the bridge. Unfortunately, he is no longer with us, having been killed at some point during the outbreak. Worse, the crew blocked up the morgue, a chief source of corpses for the necromorphs, forcing Clark to hunt down parts and construct a bomb to make his way inside. During this journey, we discover more information from Nicole, showing her desperate pleas to send for help as the medical bay was not equipped to deal with trauma and death on this massive of a scale. As well, we are introduced to 2 more characters and another major faction in the lore of this game. The first, Dr. Terence Kyne, is notable for being a devout member of the Church of Unitology. The Church actively worships the marker as a divine relic, revealing that the marker on board is not the first one ever discovered. In fact, there was one discovered several hundred years prior on Earth itself, and it's revealed in the Expanded Universe novels to be the thing that wiped out the dinosaurs. After its discovery, a man by the name of Michael Altman revealed the secret of the relic to the entire world before being promptly assassinated by the government to suppress all knowledge of the marker. However, this only led to a new religious cult to sprout, people believing the marker was the next step in evolution, and that its signal was a divine language meant to guide them. Kyne, along with the majority of the ship's crew, are revealed to be Unitologists, hand-selected by the Church to populate the ship. Their arrival in Aegis 7 is not accidental, as the Church is deliberately seeking the marker to strengthen their religion and discover a holy artifact. Kyne, a normally devout man, becomes immensely concerned when all the hallucinations and death occur around him. He begins to believe the marker is not divine at all, losing his faith even as he succumbs to the same hallucinations. He begins to argue with his coworker and fellow devout Unitologist named Dr. Chalice Mercer. Unlike Kyne, whose faith wavers with the death, Mercer seems to succumb to the insanity with an almost gleeful submission. He repeatedly states that the marker is divine and that the necromorphs are not some kind of accident. They are the next step in evolution that the Unitologists believe in. That undergoing the violent transformation into this cruel new form is a sort of rebirth. His slippage from sanity becomes more and more obvious throughout the game, though at the moment he seems to be misguided at the worst.
Come on! Come on!
Hello. Oh. I mean, I can't... Okay. Well, don't go losing your head. As Isaac cleaves his way through the infested deck, we discover logs from the captain speaking to Kyne. Kyne's waning beliefs clash with the captain, confessing that he doesn't see the transformations as divine. His rationality is blown off by the captain, who ignores his concern. Throughout it, we also search desperately for Nicole, but with no success. At the end of the chapter, we are introduced to the Infectors and the first Black Necromorph, who acts as a sort of mini-boss. For first-time players, seeing the captain's body morph into a stronger version of the enemies we have been facing up till now comes off as a shock, but it clearly demonstrates exactly what the player is expected to face from now on. Retrieving the captain's rig lifts the lockdown, giving access to both the bridge and the rest of the ship, but it reveals a new problem. Rushing to the engineering deck begins the 3rd chapter, as someone who appears to have sabotaged the engines. The ship's orbit is beginning to decay, which is a nightmare scenario for me personally. I have to worry about crap like this. Anyway, the engineering deck is frightening even before the necromorphs begin to infest it. It's dead quiet with a lack of engine noise, giving it this eerie atmosphere that leads to dread. On top of that, much of it is suspended over massive open pits, assumed to be filled with machinery that is obscured by shadows. Here we discover the side plot involving Chief Engineer Jacob Temple and the horticulturist named Elizabeth Cross. These two are lovers, and Mr. Temple consistently leaves helpful or disturbing logs about his survival on the ship and his struggle to avoid his own death. Mirroring the same circumstances as Isaac, Mr. Temple desperately wants to locate and rescue his girlfriend, allowing the two to flee from the ship. Time will tell their fate, but for now we don't know much. What we do know is that the madness begins spreading slowly at first, with threats of violence and self-harm all throughout the ship. The marker really did a number on the isolated crew down here. In the end, we finished the repairs on the ship's engines, and in a rather heart-pounding section fend off necromorphs so the engines fire and repair the orbit. As we return to the tram to head to the bridge, to our shock, Nicole contacts us. The message is garbled, but it at least ensures us Nicole is alive. Heading to the bridge, we have yet another issue: asteroids. It seems the process of mining a planet, called planet cracking, involves using massive gravity tethers to rip a mountain-sized chunk onto the crust of Aegis 7. Kind of fascinating, actually, the sheer magnitude of power this spacefaring civilization has, yet they have an energy crisis? Either way, the process hurtles debris into the atmosphere, creating a deadly web of asteroids that will rain down upon the ship without intervention. Instead of shields of some kind, this hardcore science fiction universe uses computer-controlled magnetic cannons that literally blast asteroids out of the airspace of the Ishimura. With a space. So we just have to repair the ADS and... Whoa! Hello there. Okay, something tells me there's a bad boy on the other side. Oh, great. Now there's a hole in the ground. Wait, how's the ship not bending atmosphere? That rock was massive. Earlier in the game, we saw Kendra and Hammond become separated when a necromorph attacked the pair of them in the captain's nest. Hammond successfully locked one of them in an escape pod, but at the same time, Kendra vanished. Going down from the bridge to the captain's nest, we encounter said necromorph and watch as Hammond launches them into space. Good riddance. Hammond informs us of the need to restart the system by going around and fixing stuff, again, and it's time to head back up and... Oh, well that's big. The Brood is considered a sort of mini-boss. While not being a full-on boss fight, it can be pretty dangerous as stated before. But with some cleanup, we can easily... and dead. Let's just start up security. Check out the workbench and... Nicole? That was weird. After some considerable effort, we successfully restart the ADS. Along the way, we encounter one of the most interesting environmental hazards this game has. Malfunctioning gravity plating. Apparently the gravity in the ship is simulated in a grid-like pattern, where the floor beneath you literally pulls you towards the hull. Considerably more worrying is the fact that the gravity plating can, and distressingly often, seems to break and reverse, pushing instead of pulling. The effect is devastating. Instant death for Isaac, but also instant death for everything else not smart enough to avoid it. We also finally see what happened to the captain. It seems Kine tried to use his authority to relieve the captain of duty. Honestly, this was probably the smart move, as it seems the captain was going to take the marker back to Earth. His fanaticism might be growing more intense with the insanity-inducing signals. This unfortunately does not go over well. The captain is killed in a deliberately confusing set of events, stabbed in the eyes with a needle by Kine while attempting to sedate him. We don't know exactly if Kine did this on purpose, or if the captain moved and he accidentally did it, or if the marker somehow damaged Kine's mind and made him do it. Either way, Kine flees and the ship descends into chaos without a leader. The cannons are back online, but they need to be fired manually while the ship restarts. And the only way to get there, for some completely insane reason, is to spacewalk? I want to point out this makes no sense design-wise. Why would you force personnel to don suits and walk out in the middle of a violent asteroid storm instead of, oh, I don't know, put a freaking door on it and from the ship? I guess it makes for a tense sequence and a harrowing but very doable spacewalk. And once again, I will reiterate that you do not need to upgrade your air supply. The cannon firing minigame is entertaining, but a little wonky. God, why is this aim so weird? Was it always like this? I know it's been a few years since... Whatever, I beat it. And now the ship is safe. Thank God everything on the ship is now fit.
Wait! Isaac Hammond. You're not gonna believe this. Oxygen levels are falling.
Oh, for God's sakes! Seems the infection has spread onto hydroponics, which is the part of the ship that produces food and oxygen for the entire crew. And somehow it's consuming the biomass from the gardens there and producing a noxious miasma that is corrupting the very atmosphere of the ship. Yeesh. So in order to wipe the stuff out, we need to head back to Medical Bay and brew up poison to kill the contamination in hydroponics. Returning to decks you previously explored happens a few times in Dead Space, and I actually really enjoy doing it. It remixes the areas with more difficult necromorphs, causes previously locked doors and lockers to be open, and also causes slight changes to the area that you were previously in. For instance, walking into this area for the first time has this strange CAT scan machine that you need to move around using kinesis. You've got to put a battery into a plug to activate an elevator, move the machine back and forth to create a walkway, because that's good ship design, and the area is fairly well lit. The second time through, the area seems damaged. It's dark, the CAT scan machine is jerking back and forth, and arcs of electricity are shooting out of the middle. On top of that, our guardian is placed here to make this section just a little more difficult. It's stuff like this that I really enjoy. A small example is also that the first time through, this one spot has lots of flies. But later, when the atmosphere is vented in this section, the flies are gone. It's a very small touch, but it really helps immerse you into the story. Of course, the first thing that happens when we enter the deck is Mercer contacting us. His disembodied voice whispers out of the walls, and seems that he's gone completely bonkers. It's hard to tell if he's succumbed to the marker signal, or if he's always been a little unhinged, but it's clear he's immensely dangerous now. Proclaiming that humanity has already become extinct, and that we are the last dying gasp of the species that refuses to give in, he readies himself to expedite the glorious transition of humanity to necromorph. Dude is nuttier than a bag of squirrels. Unfortunately, he's also pretty handy at slowing us down, unveiling his masterpiece. A necromorph made out of a man he forcibly injected some kind of modified strain of the bacteria, which has created the Hunter. The Hunter is big, fast, and deadly as hell, and the worst of all, he's unkillable. See, unlike the normal necromorphs, where blasting limbs off results in the bodies hemorrhaging enough fluid they stop moving, the Hunter just goes the way of the starfish. Extreme regeneration with seemingly no limitations in sight. This really forces us to avoid combat with him, as he's a constant and irritating drain on resources. He's also really strong, knocking Isaac in half with ease. Thankfully, you can kneecap him, then hit him with stasis to buy yourself enough time to flee through each room. Of course, the worst part is when Mercer shuts off the air in the area. Now you have to manage your resources, avoid Captain No-Kill, all manner of necromorphs, and listen to Isaac choking his own phlegm. Thankfully, this section is short, and again, it's very doable without upgrading air. After the final mixing of the poison, we are thrown one last time into the ring with the Hunter. Mercer reveals his plans of heading back to Earth, and by flash freezing the necromorphs and taking them with him. What a nutbag. Well, thankfully that whole plan benefits us, and so we can just freeze the Hunter. Goodbye, idiot. And good riddance. With Chapter 6 upon us, we're halfway through the game proper. Hammond had briefly disappeared, being replaced with Kendra for a little while, but we find him choking on the air at the entrance of hydroponics. He tells us that there isn't just a goo forming, but a massive creature inhabiting the main food storage, basically having eaten the entire storeroom. That creature was responsible for the poisonous air, so guess what we have to do? Not kill it at first. See, there are 8 rooms that produce air for the ship, 4 on each side. For some oddball reason, there's a unique necromorph, apparently it's the crew from this section, that have become living air converters. Before we can fill the food storage with poison, we have to kill them all so the system will unlock. It sounds pretty simple.
There are so many necromorphs. There's like 50 of them. Just run! Run!
Thankfully, these breathy boys are not outright dangerous, instead just causing the atmosphere in the room to become hostile to human life. So we are back to gasping and grunting with Isaac time. I kind of consider these to be the most tragic of the necromorphs, even more so than the Guardians. They gasp, taking in short, stuttering breaths with coughs coming in between. Coughing just seems to be such a normal thing that seeing some bloated version of what was once a person doing it sends a sympathetic pang through me. Poor little dude. Anyway, time to die. And you're dead. Yeah, they're so weak that you don't even need to expend the ammo to wipe the floor with them. The 2 side areas are set up with one being relatively untouched by the necrotic goo, and the other just overwhelmed with it. At the end of each section is a pretty interesting solution to storage problems in space. Just turn off gravity and create huge open spaces where you can stack everything as tightly as possible. No worrying about things toppling over when gravity isn't an issue. Though I suppose you'd have a sort of Jenga kind of issue when trying to locate anything in here. Problem is, of course, the storage rooms are empty and the food is all goo now. Oh, goody.
Isaac, make us whole again.
Nicole? Where are you? How is she sending these messages? Along the way, we also get some updates in the whole Temple and Cross side story. Cross is in charge of this section, proudly declaring that her side of the business is flourishing. Food stores are up and oxy levels are high. Of course, once the infection sets in, consuming all the plants in this area, she desperately tries to seek a way out. We're rooting for you, Cross. Find a temple. Once the side areas are cleared, you only have to plug the poison in and... It didn't work. Of course it didn't work. Why would it? So once again, Isaac must fix the problem, this time with superheated bolts of plasma. Oh! Good. Nightmares. The entire main storage of food has become one big eldritch horror. Welcome to the first boss fight of the game, and a relatively simple one. 3 tentacles line the central pit with a mouth. Destroying each tentacle results in the mouth opening up. It screams in rage, then fires globs of explosives at you, while you have to shoot the glowing weak point. Not particularly difficult, though there is an awkward method of jumping to avoid the whipping that I do. Okay, that's the last of the things that are about to explode and kill us that we have to fix. Now we need to send a distress signal. Seems the only method is to find one of the many asteroids the ship is mining, attach a beacon to it, and then send it on its way. That'll clear the interference offered up by the billions of tons of rocks floating out in space. So onto the mining deck. I guess the mining deck provided a last-ditch effort for most people. It's set up in 4 levels where you have to find all the pieces of the beacon to assemble it beforehand, and one of which is currently locked down. The choice of where to go is yours, though until you get all the pieces together, you can't access the asteroid itself. Could be a sequence break issue. One floor has you tossing stray asteroids into 0G, sending them to some kind of smelter/gravity beam. After that, you've got one of the more challenging sequences in the game. The entire arena is made up of one long, unbroken circle, meaning there's no place to put your back to the wall. On top of that, those annoying explodey guys who kill you in one hit are slowly lumbering toward you from both sides. My solution to this is just pick a direction and go. Kill everything in front of you, push through the bodies, and never let the group behind you catch up. Just be aware of the vents as you pass them. Don't kill a necromorph while you're standing next to one of the vents. It's a good recipe for getting jumped. After that, finding the parts is easy peasy. Heading down to the bottom, we find a pretty annoying sequence. The whole bottom is just stupid. First is infectors, then it's a long elevator ride with those turret pod boys, and finally
Isaac? Is that really you?
Nicole? Well, I'll be damned. She's actually alive. Glad she's okay, and she's going to help us out. We're forced to protect her during a tense sequence in which you and her are under siege by necromorphs and...
Okay, the door's unlocked, Isaac. I can't get over to you, but I'll find a way. I love you. This will all be over soon.
Wait. Hold on, we just got back together. Okay, fine. Hopefully she'll be okay. At this point, we've got all the pieces of the puzzle. We just need to find the asteroid itself. A simple romp through... Oh, hey. Well, would you look at that. It's like a little fairy circle of hands. How cute. Down here, we discover 3 plot-relevant things. 1. Temple and Cross did reunite, which is awesome for them. Though they seem to have issues with finding transportation, so they're heading out of mining. 2. That Kind appears to have survived after killing the captain, and was attempting to gain the keys to storage, despite being in the mining deck. He runs off, spouting increasingly insane nonsense. And 3. Hammond has gone off the grid again. Since seeing him in hydroponics, he's vanished. No radio contact or anything. Kendra has been our only source of significant aid throughout this whole section, and she's beginning to doubt Hammond's intentions. Either way, the asteroid is launched and it's on its way. Good, now we can...
Beacon's on its way. All functions normal and broadcasting wideband. Now we just have to hope somebody's listening. I'll position the array receiver. I thought I saw my brother again. He waved to me, like nothing was wrong. Okay. I should be able to leave this channel open. What? The comms array receiver isn't responding. Isaac, can you get back to the bridge?
How much of this ship is not working? Isaac needs overtime for this. As we fight our way onto the mining deck, Kendra mentions having seen her dead brother on a camera. That's not good. We need her intact if we're going to be making out of here. Okay, returning to the bridge brings us good news and bad news. Good news, the USM Valor has detected our signal. Bad news, we can't communicate with them because the stupid comms array is down.
This is USM Valor, widecasting on all frequencies to USG Ishimura in response to your SOS. We picked up your escape pod, number 47, and are en route to your position. This message will repeat every 30 seconds until you respond.
Worst news. They picked up the escape pod Hammond sent out. Oh crap. Oh crap, you have to be kidding me. No, they cannot open it. We quickly rearrange the dishes to form a complete array and... Something is blocking it? Okay, it can't be that bad. Oh, it's another boss. This one is pretty easy. Just blast what it throws at you and keep knocking into the glowing bits. Okay, it's dead. Okay, come on.
Ishimura, come in. Do not open the escape pod. USM Valor, this is Kendra Daniels on USG Ishimura, come in. Do not open the escape pod. Damn it, respond.
Oh no. Okay. Is that the... Oh, that's the ship. It's coming right here. Okay, maybe I can shoot it?
Damn it.
Well, it was worth a shot.
Oh my god. It's headed right for us. Look out there.
Wish I could just talk to someone. It's all falling apart here.
Hammond? Okay, so Hammond isn't dead. Apparently he wants to board the Valor and seize the Singularity Core. I guess what passes for fuel here. Then we're going to use it to fix up the executive shuttle. And I guess it's up to Isaac again. While I clear out this radioactive material, I want to talk about the difference between Valor and the Ishimura. You can really feel how it's more of a military vessel. The whole ship is designed for war, and it's shown throughout. The ship's audio is masculine rather than soothingly feminine. The corridors are even tighter, and there are huge cubby holes instead of individual rooms. We're also introduced to the newest enemy, the one that I hid, the Twitchers. Apparently stasis is used in combat situations, which makes a lot of sense. So each soldier's rig comes equipped with one, for firing in combat. Kind of nightmare fuel if you think about it. Imagine fighting someone who blasts you with slow-mo, then just shoots you to death. Oh, hush. The stasis units have merged with the flesh of the soldiers, and instead of slowing them down, it's rapidly speeding them up. Man, I don't remember having this much issues with shooting them, even if they are fast. These guys are the last standard enemies introduced to the game, and they make every encounter a lot more tense when one of them can just sprint at you without stopping. Okay, here's a fun thing. There's a little shooting minigame in here, pretty simple stuff. I can typically do this in one go, and you really should. It's basically free rewards, and... I can't... Why can't I... I know I used to be able to... What the... I can't even... It's so... What the... Come on. What the f... Are you kidding me? Okay, let's try the mouse. Dude, what... Oh my god. What the f*** is going on? VSync? What do you mean VSync? I am an idiot. For those of you not aware, input lags when you press a button, and there is a significant delay between the press and the action on screen. On top of that, the aiming was completely wonky. You'd push the stick and it would shoot forwards and then go far past what you wanted. And the same thing with the mouse. Even using mouse, I couldn't finish it. Okay, well, aiming seems easier, but things don't seem completely normal. Why am I so slow? Whoa. Slow-mo stomps. Something doesn't seem right. Enemy bodies are going kinda nuts. Sorry. This section is pretty intense. One of the harder sections in the game. A gauntlet of enemies is coming at you from the other side of the rooms. It's another highly challenging sequence, and one that I always prepare for, and I recommend you do as well. Okay. Pause. See that? That's a broken gravity plating. Notice how there's no graphic showing that? There's no blue light coming out of it? Wow. Okay, I'm telling you, something doesn't feel right still. I mean, it's playable, but it just... What the heck? Okay, let's just take a moment and fix this. Okay, it's almost entirely fixed. Some of the graphics seem odd, but You know, I do this a lot. I once beat half a Sekiro with about a second of input lag. No joke, I got to the Headless 8 fight and then couldn't beat it. Then I got a message from someone screaming that I should be checking the settings on my TV. Turns out I wasn't on game mode. Too stubborn for my own good. Let's get back on track. Collecting the Singularity Drive is as simple as shooting some circuits and ripping it out of the wall. And we just have to get off the ship and... Oh hey, Hammond!
Over here. I'm trying to reach you. My phone was out. You got the singularity core, that's how I take it out of here. Get that core in the tunnel. Don't wait for me. Oh, fuck me.
Oh, crap. Goodbye, Hammond. Well, it looks like Hammond wasn't a traitor at all. In fact, he spent his last moments trying to help us out. Rest in peace, you beautiful bald boy. And in all action and horror movie fashion, the ship explodes as we get off it. Okay, we are almost out of here. Okay, Chapter 10. Gotta be reaching the end. The crew quarters has this eerie atmosphere. The unitologists all ritualistically committed suicide by somehow piercing themselves in the forehead, creating an easy opening for the infectors. Grim. But on the other hand, Zero-G basketball! Woo! Once again, just play this for the rewards. 6 levels, by the way. Oh, and great. Mercer is back. Oh, crap. It's Temple. And... Cross. He already got Cross. And now he's got Temple. What a sad end to their story. Killed by a maniac for belief they didn't even adhere to. They deserved better. Mercer. Right now we need to locate the chipsets to fix the shuttle, each located inside of a different section of the crew deck. On top of that, the Hunter is back. We don't have some kind of flash freezer to get rid of him. But it seems Kyne has miraculously survived this entire time, and he's the one responsible for the acts of sabotage we've been fixing throughout the ship. Well, now he wants to help us repair the shuttle, but he's got some bold and radical plan apparently proposed by some woman named Amelia. I don't see anyone there, Kyne. Instead of fleeing from the ship, we gotta take the marker down to the planet and make it whole. I think maybe we should help him? Thankfully, we locate a method of eliminating the Hunter that's been plaguing us this entire time. Test fire the shuttle's engines right on that bastard. Good riddance. Kyne takes the shuttle out, leaving us to meet him on the deck this whole mess started on, the flight deck. On the way out, Mercer contacts us.
Your time has come. No need to be frightened. No reason to fight. Many have gone before us, and now it's time for us to take the voyage together. Transcend death. Future take its course. Join me as I gaze upon the face of God.
Two-for-one deal. This entire time, Mercer and Kyne have been mentioning a hive mind of some kind of intelligence that was beneath the crust of the planet. Apparently taking the marker unleashed the beast, shown only by these few massive tendrils upon Aegis 7. We have to assume that this hive mind is the intelligence behind the marker, and behind what is driving the necromorphs. All that's left is one final push. The marker is located inside of storage in the flight deck. This is one of the most challenging rooms. Pulling it up seems to enrage the necromorphs. They come in swarms, having a similar issue to what happened on the mining deck. Instead of a circle, you have 4 rooms the necromorphs can spawn in, all linked together in a cross pattern. There are tendrils that come from the floor, that will block your path if you try to run past. The enemies are fast, deadly, and desperate to stop you, but we won't be stopped. Once the marker is moved, it's a simple matter of securing it onto the ship. Then we just have to join Kine and... No.
Sorry, Isaac. I couldn't let him go through with it. I suppose I should thank you for finding the marker. We even managed without help from the USM Valor. Thank you for helping me find it, by the way. My department's been looking for this place for a long time. See what Kine didn't know was? It was the government's mess to begin with. This whole planet is one big experiment. The marker? This divine relic? Made by man. They reverse engineered it a couple of hundred years ago from the real marker, a true alien artifact recovered on Earth. They dug it up, studied it, and they made it their own. Then they brought it to Aegis 7 and activated it. And you've seen the result. The stuff of nightmares. They sealed the system, and no one would have been the wiser. But then the CEC blunders in and starts tearing the planet apart. The experiment was still alive. Kine was right about the hive mind. The marker would contain it, but that doesn't matter now, does it? I have the marker, and this entire system can go to hell. For what it's worth, you did a great job, Isaac. See you around. Or maybe not.
Kendra. The whole time, Kendra was blocking Hammond's signal. She was betraying us to get the marker. There's no hope now. She's got the shuttle. Nicole?
I need you to help me.
Nicole?
I'm in the flight control room. Please, Isaac, hurry. Please.
I thought you were dead. My...
Isaac? Is that really you? I never thought we'd be together again. God, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for what I did.
My head hurts, Nicole. The symbols,
You need to get it
they're
back now.
burning inside of my mind.
Pilot the shuttle remotely.
Screens are filled with them.
Make us whole again.
I can make us whole again. I can. Recalling the shuttle forces Kendra to escape with a pod onto the planet. But the shuttle is all ours. Don't worry, Nicole. I'll make us whole again. Touching down on this hostile, alien world, it's devoid of meaningful life. No plants, no animals. Just like the game's name, this universe is full of dead space. Humanity is hopelessly alone, isolated. I dip into my carefully stored resources and begin the difficult trek of transporting the marker. Its eerie red glow seems to call the necromorphs to it, and they answer without fail. Isaac will not be stopped. He has suffered for long. But now he has Nicole, and he will silence this outbreak. Almost there. Just a little longer.
Thank you, Isaac.
Nicole,
I always
how did
knew.
you get here?
I knew you'd return to me. We are whole again, Isaac. We are whole.
Nicole.
Emergency. Geo-orbital gravity tethers offline. Tectonic load released. Impact imminent. Evacuate this area immediately.
Decontamination cycle activated.
Kendra.
You really didn't think I was just gonna walk away with you?
Don't take it back.
I can't do
I've
that.
suffered. We've suffered so much to bring this back. Nicole and I.
I was starting to like you. Even if you are insane. What, you don't believe me? Take a look at yourself. Better yet, take a look at the video from Nicole.
Crazy.
And this time, watch your
I'm not
head.
crazy.
Isaac, it's me. I wish I could talk to you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry about everything. I wish I could just talk to someone. It's all falling apart here. I can't believe what's happening. It's strange. Such a little thing. In the end, it all comes down to this one little thing. I didn't want it to end like this. I really wanted to see you again. Just once. I loved you. I always loved you. See? You're insane. Just like Kine, just like the captain. Nicole has been dead this whole time. Whatever you were seeing was caused by that. You are its pawn. But don't worry. It will be in good hands now. Far away from this damn place. Goodbye, Isaac.
We have been a pawn this entire time, gleefully following the orders of every person we have met. Isaac's mind was in a fog, tormented by depression over Nicole's death. He clung to the hope the marker so easily planted in his mind. Kendra, Hammond, Kine, the marker. We did everything we were told to do. But now I'm going to choose. I choose to kill Kendra. There you are, you.
Oh my god.
The final battle. The hive mind. The sky is falling. The tether's taken offline by the pulse the marker released. We cannot escape on shuttle. The hive mind will slap us out of the air. We have no choice but to fight. The hive mind itself is an amalgamation of all the things we don't like about the necromorph. It is a familiar pieces, but it takes an alien form. Exploding the paws on its face and then inside of its rib cage ends the life of this monstrosity. At least, for now. For all we know, it's only temporarily stunned. But there is no more time.
Isaac, it's me. I wish I could talk to you. I'm sorry.
With that ending, Dead Space cemented its place in the history of horror, blending together gore, psychological terror, and feelings of helplessness into a masterpiece. It really seemed to have helped define a generation of horror fans when it was released. Its unique setting, fascinating approach to combat, and overall storytelling leaves this franchise at the top of my list. My main criticisms toward this game are almost universally addressed in Dead Space 2, but there are two large issues. That is, gameplay elements, and Dead Space 1's approach to storytelling. You can't switch weapons mid-run. Isaac sometimes controls a bit too clunky. And there's an entire weapon that is useless even on lower difficulties. I would forgive it, but the weapons only number in 7, meaning they had time to really nail the flamer. What a piece of crap. The biggest issue I have with Dead Space is, well, Isaac. He is a silent protagonist. Silent protagonists are one of my least favorite methods of storytelling inside of games. He never speaks throughout the entire game. He never responds to questions or orders. He's a slave. Let me be clear, I don't have much issue with silent protagonists in games where you are given choices, or the game simulates responses from the main character. In Legend of Zelda, Link is not actually silent. He's implied to be speaking, albeit without actual words. In RPGs, the main character can often have no voice, but you affect the story through dialogue choices that help you get into the mood of the character you're playing. Like in Fallout New Vegas. No, in Dead Space and other games like it, mainly first-person shooters and third-person shooters, a silent protagonist actually alienates me to the story. BioShock really put it the best, comparing the player to a slave. You don't choose anything, you don't affect the story of these games because you have a set path that you must follow in order for the game to play out the story it has created. Imagine if I just chose to ignore all those orders Kendra gave me. What if I decided to just go look for Nicole? The lack of dialogue on Isaac's part makes him seem like he has no agency, and by virtue neither does the player. The counter-argument could be that you have no choice but to fix the parts of the ship when you do, since they break down. But in that case, why bother making him silent? I already empathize with Isaac, I'm already putting myself in his shoes, but when Kendra orders Isaac to fix some random part of the ship, that is already set in stone. I mean, it's going to happen. If Isaac was going to gripe about it, to comment on it, I could agree with him. I could share his sentiments, and we could also form a more complex dialogue in the game and build the story. On top of that, Isaac never outwardly chooses to side with Kyne. You just sort of do it because that's what the game told you to do. You're railroaded into this. Isaac never says yes. He never offers an argument for doing it or not doing it. You just move from place to place doing what is told of you. If Isaac himself chose to do something, if he said,
The engines are dying. I will go down there while you two stay here. That would have created a way better narrative, and it would have offered some dialogue.
Dead Space 2 does this perfectly. Isaac speaks throughout the story and makes choices that I fully agree with. Not only that, he gives the player objectives that make me feel like I myself chose to do them. I see his logic by virtue of the storytelling. It makes me feel like I'm actually playing Isaac. Now, this can backfire with speaking protagonists if the writers force the player into an action they absolutely do not want to do.
Last of Us 2.
Still, there are more examples of well-written protagonists than bad ones. I would rather they speak and not just be some silent meat puppet. I hate silent protagonists. I hate when the air fills with quiet, reminding me how utterly alone I am, how there is nothing and no one behind those cold, dead eyes. That's not really my point with this. Yes, Dead Space suffers from its silent protagonist, but so much else of it is brilliant. The pacing, the slow buildup of concepts, the story delivery. When you play Dead Space, you easily get pulled into its pace. It's impossible to ignore the ambient storytelling all around you. The ship is just as much a character as anyone else. Every room holds a little more of the story. It tells you something more about life on this ship, life in this universe. The gameplay loop is fantastic. At a time in gaming when hitting headshots was the best option, the developers bravely attempted a whole new concept. They emulated the great horror movies of the past decades, striving for a non-traditional system of limb decapitation. Managing your resources became a game with many layers. Yes, being aware of what you had and what you were using was important, but more important than that was the idea that skill and practice rewarded the player. Knowing what gun to use and where to use it would save some ammo, but there's also your general skill at cutting off the limbs. Less shots means more ammo to deal with future groups. That is to say, minimizing mistakes in small groups that you could control meant more ammo to deal with the big groups where you don't have as much time. You can spray and not worry. Recognizing that purchasing ammo was not as intelligent as purchasing nodes provided the player with a razor-thin gameplay loop that rewards them. I believe that Dead Space 1 is a game so close to perfection. It's nearly touched upon it. It's almost reached that level, but it fell just short of perfect. But there's so much here that is worth exploring, not just because of the story, but the gameplay. This is a classic example of a game that serves as both a vehicle for the narrative and an entertaining ride throughout. And that is a shockingly difficult thing to balance. I think the people in the past underestimated the sheer magnitude of artistic skill it would take to craft something of this level. I believe that if you have an interest in science fiction or horror, that those of you on board should play this game. Full stop, play this game. Even if you watch this video, the gameplay is rewarding enough that it will actually engage you. And maybe you can find a use for the flamer. I wish there was a better version of this game out there, somewhere. Maybe when Amber trolls to the Nexus, she'll find me a copy. Either way, thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time. And people used to say this kind of stuff at the end of the videos. Really? Alright then, I'll go ahead and say it. Hi. If you watch this whole video, please consider leaving a like, as well as subscribing to the channel. As well as leaving a comment if that strikes your fancy. This was a long labor of love, and I had to learn a lot of different things for this. It would help me out quite immensely. And expect many more things to come in the future. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.